first time Anna counted the exits that night, there were 6. By dessert, she'd found a 7th in the mirrored wall, an angle that would buy 3 seconds if panic ever decided to look like a person. No one else in the dining room of Le Pavillon of Glass was counting anything but zeros. Crystal chimed where laughter should have lived, and money made its small, constant sound. The whisper of linen, the hiss of butter on copper, the polite cough of a bottle older than memory. Anna moved through it all with a tray balanced on one hand, and the quiet that made people think she was simple. That was the trick of silence in rooms like this. It turned competence into wallpaper. "Smile, sweetheart," the hedge fund wife said as Anna set down a plate. "You'll wrinkle otherwise." Anna smiled with the part of her face that didn't bruise. "Yes, ma'am," she said, and continued her circuit, counting steps. 12 to the kitchen, 8 to the service door, 4 to the fire pole. It was practice, not paranoia. In the years before New York, she had learned that a person's life could depend on knowing which door would actually open. "Anna," Greg whispered, materializing at her elbow with the manager's smile that always mispronounced apology. "The Vance table is complaining about the light. Go be useful." The Vance table never liked anything they couldn't see themselves in. Richard Vance wore his power like a well-cut suit. His wife Candace wore contempt as jewelry. Across from them, their friends Derek and Lauren perfected the niche art of nodding while looking bored. At a two-top nearby, a man sat alone, unbothered, the sort of solitary presence that makes space instead of demanding it. He was familiar in the way magazines make strangers familiar. James Colton, billionaire, quiet philanthropist, rumored to be cruel in business and courteous in checkout lines. Anna turned the dimmer near Vance down a 1/4 inch. The chandelier sighed in approval. Candace wagged 2 fingers without looking up from her phone. "Another inch." Anna went another 1/4. "Perfect," Candace said to the screen. Then to Anna, "You're very obedient." "Thank you," Anna said, because sometimes the quickest way past a person is to hand them their own line. Richard didn't wait for a cue. "You knew?" he asked, eyes on his reflection in the spoon. "We had an Anna last month. She spilled." "This Anna doesn't," Derek added, smirking as if he'd helped. "I've been here 6 months," Anna said. She didn't volunteer the rest. She had learned to arrange her past like flatware. What you need in reach, the sharp edges turned inward. She poured burgundy. The wine crept up the bowl of the glass as if it had somewhere to be. She set a slice of lamb before Candace. "Is this grass-fed?" Candace asked, then without waiting, "You don't eat lamb, do you?" "I eat what's put in front of me," Anna said, and smiled again with the part of her face that didn't bruise. The room held its tableau, money as posture, dinner as theater, cruelty as leisure. If you stayed very still, you could hear the air conditioner's low hum under the string quartet. Anna listened to the hum the way other people listen to compliments. It steadied her. At the bar, Tony polished glasses, his shoulders saying "end of shift, please," to a clock that never negotiated. Jenna, the other server on main floor, caught Anna's eye and grimaced in the international sign for table 12 as awful. Anna lifted a shoulder. It was a muscle that could hold anything. Colton's table was a relief between storms. He ate without performing appetite, sipped without auditioning his palate, and thanked her each time with a nod that weighed the same at lunch and midnight. In another room, he would have been the center. Here, he was a lack of gravity in a room that rewarded collapse. "Another San Pellegrino, Mr. Colton?" Anna asked. "Yes, thank you," he said. His voice had the kind of courtesy that doesn't put change in your hand. When she set the bottle down, his gaze flicked, not to her face, but to her hands. Most men looked up to command. The dangerous ones looked down to take inventory. He was neither. He was curious. It made her want to be somewhere with fewer reflections. At the pass, the chef slid 2 plates toward her, like declarations. Halibut with fennel pollen, duck with cherries sleek as secrets. "Table 12, he said, "and tell them the halibut is from a place that will impress them." "From the ocean," Anna said. He snorted into his towel. They were kind to each other in the kitchen because the dining room wasn't. On her next trip, Lauren reached out and lifted the corner of Anna's order pad. "Do they let you write in that?" she asked, as if Anna were borrowing intelligence without permission. Anna turned the pad over. The top sheet was blank. The list was under the paper, written on the backboard in pencil, so soft it could be erased with a sigh. Allergies, wine preferences, exit routes. Sometimes, she said. Richard leaned back. What did you do before this? He asked, which meant tell me what makes you less than me so I can be kind about it. Other work, Anna said. College? Derek asked. You don't look like college. Soldiers don't either, Candace muttered, scrolling. Unless it's Halloween. Anna's smile didn't touch her eyes. College is expensive, she said. So are assumptions. Greg hovered, sensing tips teetering. Anna, less banter, he breathed. More service. To the table. Our staff loves a good laugh. He laughed alone. Anna delivered plates. Across the room, Colton's phone lit with a blue notification. He didn't reach for it immediately. When he did, the screen sketched nothing across his face. No worry, no surprise. That was its own kind of message, and Anna filed it without meaning to. Long before she'd learned to balance trays, she had learned to read faces, not as stories, but as weather. Tonight's forecast over Colton, clear skies with the possibility of intervention. A busboy dropped a fork. The sound made 3 different men flinch 3 different ways. Derek jerked and laughed, as if loudness could lace fear into irony. Richard's hand went to his chest, then to his wife's elbow, rehearsing chivalry. Colton didn't startle at all. His eyes went to the busboy's feet. Useful, Anna thought, and hated herself for labeling a stranger. At 9:30, the dining room reached that specific pitch where desserts haven't arrived, dignity has left, and the quartet plays requests no one asked for. Anna refilled water at the Vance table. Steady hands, Candace said, watching the meniscus. Do you practice with teacups at home? Her voice had the lazy pleasure of someone sure she cannot be corrected. On bad days, I use coffee mugs, Anna said, and moved before anyone could decide whether to be offended. The Vance table pretended to be quiet, the way a storm pretends to be polite before it tips a tree. Richard Vance liked to sit where he could see himself reflected. Bar mirror, window, polished wine bottle. Anything that would make his outline look inevitable. Across from him, Candace had the poise of a woman whose life had taught her that performance will always be mistaken for grace. To his right lounged Derek and Lauren, newly rich and still warm from the oven, gold catching on everything they said. At the far edge of the dining room, alone with a book he wasn't reading, sat a man no one recognized as anyone, which is precisely how people like James Colton prefer to be noticed. Anna moved like she always did, a set of practiced courtesies arranged to make other people feel like they were the point. She had learned long ago that invisibility was less a curse than a tool. When people weren't watching, they told the truth with their whole bodies. By 7:30, she'd counted 4 tells from the Vance table. Richard's thumb rubbing the seam of his napkin when a deal was going badly. Candace's habit of correcting the server's pronunciation, then ordering something different. Derek's need to say price before taste. Lauren's tendency to laugh exactly 1 second after everyone else. And always the way the manager, Greg, would hover near them. Chin high, smile wide. Loyal in the way a pawn is loyal to the person who taught it how to move. Pinot for the table, Richard said without looking up. The good one. We have 3 that, Anna began. He waved his hand, a small royal decree. The one Greg opened last time. You know which. She did. The good one to him was never the best one. It was the most expensive one he could name without Googling. Candace's eyes scanned Anna the way a TSA agent scans a stranger. Efficient, suspicious, bored. You're new, she said, though Anna had been here 8 months. Still here, Anna answered with a smile that refused to belong to anyone else. Lauren leaned into the mirror of her spoon. She's pretty, she told Candace, because compliments feel safe when they're whispered in a tone that expects the opposite response. She's fine, Candace said. We're late. Anna stepped away before the next line could shape itself. At the bar, Greg waited with 2 fingers resting proprietorily on the quartz. Circle them, he muttered. Keep your tray under their camera angle. My tray doesn't have an angle, Anna said. It does when they're paying for the view, Greg replied, not looking at her. His hair was slicked back with the certainty of a man who had memorized the rules and decided they were his. And try not to chat, just pour and pivot. Anything else? Anna asked lightly. Stay invisible, he said, lowering his voice to make it sound like advice. They don't like a story attached to the service. Anna lifted the Pinot with her left hand, thumb against the punt, and thought how often the invisible kept the visible from falling over. At Colton's table, the book lay open face down, a sin in certain households. He was looking past the page, past the room, at something only he could see. Anna set a small lamp upright that a busboy had left tilting and asked, as she would ask any man reading in the half-light, "Would you like a refill?" He glanced up. His eyes didn't do the scan for status. They did something more dangerous. They focused. "Tea," he said. "Black. No lemon." "Strong?" she asked. "I trust your definition of the word," he said. Most people phrase trust as a tip. This man phrased it as a courtesy. Anna filed the data and moved on. At the Vance table, the Pinot performed its opening act. Anna tilted, poured without foam, let the bow of the bottle drip back into itself rather than onto the table. Derek took a loud sip and nodded as if Anna had done something particularly complex. "Yes," he said. "This one." "It's the right one," Candace said, lifting her glass to inspect herself in its curve. "Richard?" Richard didn't drink immediately. He checked his phone, a reflex he could not suppress, then took a measured mouthful and declared, "Fine." Greg hovered. "Excellent choice, Mr. Vance." Richard nodded at Greg and nodded at Anna. "We're doing a tomahawk to share," he said. "2 medium rare, 1 rare, 1 whatever she likes." He gestured to Lauren without looking at her. "Medium," Lauren said. "Medium rare is better," Candace corrected. "It's science." Anna wrote nothing down. She never did. The kitchen was easier to navigate when your hands were empty. "Anything else to begin?" she asked. "Bread," Candace said. "Warm. Do you know what warm means?" "It's the opposite of the reception at the coat check," Derek offered. He laughed, alone. "Warm," Anna repeated in the same tone one uses for medical instructions. She was 2 steps away when Richard spoke again, voice pitched low but not cruel. "The last girl had a tattoo," he said. "It made the place look cheaper." Anna turned just enough to make eye contact. "I don't have tattoos," she said. "I prefer commitments I can remove." Candace's mouth tightened. Greg's eyes cut toward Anna so fast the air burned. "Kitchen," he hissed as soon as she cleared the carpet. "Now." In the narrow silver of the service hallway, the glamour bled out of the room like heat. Anna leaned against the stainless prep, counting in 4, in, 2, 3, 4, out, 2, 3, 4. Greg followed, adrenaline wearing the cologne of management. "They don't need your personality," he said. "They need to feel like kings." "They're not kings," Anna said, and took a stack of plates. "Tonight they are," Greg hissed. "Until they leave, everyone is whatever tips best." "You don't tip well," Anna said softly. "You don't smile well," Greg snapped. Then, because he was the kind of man who needed to win every skirmish to pretend he was winning the war, he added, "If you want to keep this job, stop being clever. Clever confuses people." "Understood," she said in the tone that had ended arguments overseas. Polite, finite, unyielding. Back on the floor, the restaurant glittered in the way light does when it has nothing better to do than admire itself. The pianist nudged a minor key into "Fly Me to the Moon." A couple celebrated an anniversary with clumsy hands. A banker practiced the art of speaking loudly enough for 2 nearby tables to hate him. At the Vance table, bread arrived at the exact temperature of appeasement. James Colton's tea landed time to his glance, not the clock. "Thank you," he said with the particular sincerity of a person who doesn't know how to fake it and has never tried. "Will I like it?" "You'll respect it," Anna said. "Liking is mood." He tasted, nodded. "Respectable," he agreed. "Mood to be determined." "Let me know if it changes," she said, and moved away before he could ask the question his eyes had formed. "What were you before this?" By 9, the dining room deepened. The Vance table worked through meat like a sport. They were discussing yachts in the plural, and the word charity floated over their plates without touching their mouths. Periodically, Richard checked the market on his phone and reported on a number as if he'd raised it himself by staring. Candace corrected a server's posture by example. Derek bragged about a cryptocurrency as if it were a child who'd finally learned to tie his shoes. Lauren documented her dessert in a series of photographs whose primary subject was her own lips. "Why is the waitress so serious?" Candace whispered. Loud enough. "Probably a failed actress," Derek said. "They end up in hospitality or politics." "Or both," Richard said. His chuckle was shaped like a blade. Anna arrived with the check for the couple in the corner, who had asked for it shyly. The way people do when they haven't learned that wanting to leave has nothing to do with rudeness. She slipped the leather across, a small kindness invisible to everyone except those who needed it. "Hey," Greg said as she passed him again. Smile pinned. Eye contact not optional. "Vance wants a round of digestive cocktails. They saw it in a show. They don't know what the word means. Pick something brown." "Understood," she said. "And another thing," Greg added, lowering his voice to something he called mentorship. "Don't stand so straight. Makes people nervous. Hips a little off. Tilts red, friendly on cameras." "Which cameras?" Anna asked friendly. He smiled. "All of them." She crafted the tray, Amaro, Fernet, a sweet thing for Derek, an old-fashioned for Richard he would declare too sweet and finish anyway. When she set them down, Candace reached for the Amaro like it had been poured specifically to rescue her from boredom. "You know," Candace said, looking up at Anna as if she were an upper shelf, "I don't know how you do it. The standing, the tiny smiles, the pretending to care." "It's a gift," Anna said and meant it. "Where are you from?" Lauren asked, the way some people ask what a dog's breed is. "Here," Anna said. "Oh," Lauren replied, disappointed. "I thought maybe somewhere exotic." "Exotic is wherever you're not standing," Anna said. Derek snorted. Richard's eyes pinned Anna for a beat too long. "What's your name?" he asked, trying on interest to see how it fit. "Anna," she said. "Anna what?" he pressed. "Anna will do," she said. "People like a last name," he said, by which he meant he did. "She prefers exits to names," Colton said from his table. Not loud, not intrusive, just audible, like an observation offered to the room. Richard glanced over, annoyed at being included in a sentence he hadn't written. "And you are?" Richard asked. "A man with a book," Colton said, lifting his tea. Greg materialized. "Mr. Vance," he soothed, "can I tell the kitchen to start your souffle?" "Tell them to make it as good as the last one," Richard said. "They did not order souffle last time," Anna murmured, too quietly for Greg to preserve his fiction. Greg's jaw ticked. He gave her the look you reserve for smoke detectors that insist on saving your life in the middle of the night. She took the look and moved on. At the server station, Tony, who had been balancing salads and ambition for 6 months, leaned in. "You're a little spicy tonight." "Pepper," Anna said. "Not heat." "Careful," he said under his breath. "They don't like spicy women unless it's a Taco Tuesday theme." "Noted," she said. The word covered more territory than it sounded like. At 10, the restaurant softened at the edges. Chairs angled toward doors. Checks migrated like birds seeking warmer weather. Anna poured water with the same hands she'd once used to bind a wound. In the window's reflection, she caught Colton watching the room, not in defense, not in judgment, just witness. The kind of seeing that makes a person useful in a crisis. Greg whispered by her ear, close enough to make his cologne feel like a decision. "Reset table 12 when they leave. Big party at 11. "Of course," she said. "You'll handle Vance's signature," he added. "Don't mess up the pageantry." "What pageantry?" she asked. He smiled with all the confidence of a man who believed he had invented the concept of a wine list. "Let them feel like the room was built for them," he said. "It's how the world works." Anna looked past him at the door. The doorman chatted with a late arrival, a man with a baseball cap he didn't remove for the ritual. Anna watched the shoulders, the way certain men carry intent like a backpack. She caught the glint of something that didn't belong. File it. Stay invisible. She adjusted the salt on her tray so that her hands would know where it was if she needed it. "Right," she said to Greg, who mistook her tone for compliance. "It's how the world works." He walked away pleased. At the Vance table, Richard looked at himself in the spoon again and found the same man looking back. Some nights end where they begin. Some are only pretending. Anna refreshed Colton's tea. He looked up as if she had offered a better answer to a question he hadn't asked. "Quiet night," he said. "Until it's not," she said. He held her eyes a beat longer than the room allowed. "Understood," he said. By 10:57, the exit count was still 6. 2 minutes later, it wasn't. The first scream didn't come from fear. It came from surprise. The kind of sound you make when the world refuses to be the world for 1 second. The man in the baseball cap didn't remove it when he crossed the threshold. He kept his head down, which made the cap feel like a plan instead of a fashion choice. Another man held the door behind him and let in the night with him, cold, damp, impatient. A third came 5 paces later, as if late for his part. They moved like men who had practiced moving. "Phone's down, wallets out," the first one said. His voice wasn't a shout. It had the flat rhythm of a grocery list. The second man lifted his jacket enough to let the room see the handle of something that made obedience feel rational. The restaurant tried to perform its old identity for another beat. Pianist tripping over "Fly Me to the Moon?" A laugh halfway through its arc. Greg's smile glued in place. Then the performance cracked. Chairs scraped. Glass kissed tile and shattered. A server let a tray tilt and caught none of it. The room went to ground with the frantic choreography of expensive panic. Anna did not go to ground. She set Colton's teapot back on its warmer and let her breath find a metronome. In, 4, out, 4. The sound in her body became a room she could enter. She stepped into it. "Wallets on the table," the first man repeated. "Nobody gets hurt." He took 3 steps toward the Vance table because men like that can smell a watch from across a room. Richard had gone white around the mouth. Candace clutched her clutch to her chest like a small deity she suddenly believed in. Lauren held her breath under the table as if oxygen were a luxury item. "Hey," Derek said, voice too loud in the wrong way. "You don't have to." "Shut up," the second man said, and the barrel's black finger pointed nowhere in particular and therefore everywhere. At the bar, Greg's mouth formed the word security, despite the fact that his security plan had always been charm. Anna's hands knew where the salt was without looking. Her brain counted exits by old habit and found 5 now. Main door, kitchen swing, service hall, freight, alley latch half stuck in winter. She saw the men's shoes, soft soles, city-worn, no steel to betray themselves on tile. She saw their shoulders, tense but not disciplined. She saw the way the first man's left eye flicked to reflections, not faces. She cataloged like she had cataloged weather in places with no names. The third man swung wide toward the back tables, where a couple tried to stack their valuables into a tidy pile, as if tidiness could save them. He grabbed the man's watch and knocked the pile sideways because chaos prefers company. "Hey!" The sound came out of Anna's mouth and belonged to another life. The second man turned his face toward her without moving his feet. "You deaf?" he asked. Anna did not answer. She did not smile. She did not lower her eyes the way prey lowers its eyes. She took 3 slow steps, her tray balanced against her hip, and put herself at an angle that put the first man's line of sight through her shoulder, with nothing behind. "Wallet," he said, and waggled his hand like an impatient magician demanding the next prop. She lifted the tray an inch. The tray was stainless, heavy when loaded, heavier when it had to be. She did not telegraph. She let her wrists do what wrists are designed to do when you ask them to surprise physics. The tray left her hand sideways, edge leading, not at the man's head, too cinematic, but at his wrist. The impact made a sound like a small bell struck hard. The gun, if it was a gun, she hadn't wanted to confirm, clattered to tile and skittered under the linen of the nearest table, like a rodent seeking dark. The first man swore and reached the wrong way, which is to say he reached first with pride instead of his other hand. Anna moved into him. "You don't fight people. You fight gravity on their behalf." She let his momentum write half the sentence, then punctuated. Elbow into sternum, not too hard, air, not fracture. Hand under chin, redirect, not break. Heel outside his heel. Borrow stance, cancel it. He met the floor with the betrayed expression of a man who had never considered the tile's point of view. The second man drew breath for a shout that would turn the room into an echo chamber. Colton's tea was still hot. Anna's left hand found the pot by memory. She did not throw it. That is tantrum technique. She stepped, pivoted, and poured a line. Not on skin, on sleeve, scalding enough to become urgent. The shout turned into a hiss and a flinch. Flinch is a hinge. You open it. She closed, forearm to throat, pressure, not crush, wrist to counter, bone to stone, and the black finger clattered again and joined its friend under the tablecloth graveyard. Someone screamed the right way this time. It made the third man turn with his whole torso. Bad. Bad for him. He grabbed a woman's arm, bad for her, and lifted his empty other hand like a threat he hadn't yet located. Anna didn't ask permission. She picked up the salt, snapped the lid with her thumb, and flicked. A cloud of sharp white hit his eyes, and the man made the specific sound people make when their world becomes unbearable without consent. Blink as a door. She went through it. She took his wrist in both hands, neither theatrical nor gentle, and turned it the way you turn a stubborn jar lid, but down, down, down until the joint had to rethink its life choices. His knees did what knees always do when asked the right question. They considered the floor. She helped them find it. "Phone's down," she said louder, and the room obeyed her too because authority is most convincing when it doesn't ask to be. "Who are you?" Candace whimpered from the table edge, attempting to be small for the first time that evening. "A waitress," Anna said, and meant it. The first man, now without pride and with pain, reached under the tablecloth where the black fingers had gone to hide. Anna didn't wait for him to find them. She pulled the tablecloth from that side with a snap learned from a carnival that no longer exists, and the table performed its small miracle of remaining upright while surrendering its cover. Glasses chimed, silverware splayed. The black finger, this one plastic, she confirmed in a half glance, slid into the light and continued into her heel. She pinned it there, then kicked it toward the wall, where it met baseboard and lost interest. "Stay down," she told him. He listened because pain had given him a new religion. The second man had regained a portion of his composure and was negotiating with the idea of leaving. He chose badly. He grabbed for Lauren's purse and discovered, too late, that Lauren believed ownership extended to her shoulder. She held on like dignity was sewn into the strap. The tug made the second man's posture ugly. Anna closed the distance without letting her feet decide her fate. She reached his ear, soft, vulnerable, efficient, and shouted. Not words, air. The human body hates being surprised by volume that close. He staggered, and she took the wrist again, the way you take a baton from someone who doesn't know how to keep time. Behind her, Greg found his volume. "Security!" he yelled, a command that wandered the room looking for a subject. "Call 911, Colton said in a voice that had no exclamation point. People called. Time stretched its animal body. The pianist had his hands off the keys and didn't know what else to do with them. Tony peeked around the server station and saw a version of Anna he would never forget and didn't know how to file under any label. Richard lay on the floor pretending he had decided to be there. Candace made rapid small noises. Derek said something about lawsuits as if invoking the law might make it appear like a force field. "Don't move," Anna told the three men on the floor as if she were telling a dog to stay. Two obeyed. The third thought about testing an old hypothesis about courage. Anna glanced at him, and his hypothesis withdrew from publication. Sirens grew somewhere in the city the way bad weather announces itself. Present, distant, inevitable. "Hand," she said, and the three men put their hands where hands go when the world has finally told them the truth. "Who trained you?" Tony whispered, awe displacing fear. "Kitchen," Anna said, and then after a beat to make the joke harmless, "and other rooms." Colton was standing now, but not moving toward her, not looming or performing or pretending to have been useful. He stood like a person stands when he understands that attention can help or harm and has chosen the first option. "They're on their way," he said, meaning the police. 2 minutes. The room in those 2 minutes tried to become itself again. People crawled back into their chairs as if chairs had always been safe. Someone asked if they could still order dessert. Someone else cried in a way that was more about an older fear than tonight. Lauren found her purse strap intact and lifted it like a flag. Candace smoothed her dress in small, frantic strokes that could not erase embarrassment from fabric. Richard sat up and adjusted his cufflinks because ritual is how some men avoid truth. Greg approached as if approaching a wild animal. What did you, how did you, he stammered, and then found the angle he had learned pays. This is a liability nightmare. Anna looked at him. The look was not threat. It was the kind of look you give a ticking timer when you have decided it cannot hurt you anymore. Thank you, Colton said to her, cutting across Greg's sentence with something that wasn't louder, just heavier. You kept your head. That's the job, she said. The sirens arrived at the curb and turned into authoritative footsteps. Uniforms entered the room with the normalcy of routine. The three men on the floor discovered new postures that involved handcuffs. A police officer with a soft face and a hard day asked questions in the order he had been trained to ask them. Anna answered in the order that would make the thing make sense. Are you hurt? He asked her. No, she said. Name? Anna. Last name? She offered the slight smile you offer when someone insists on the whole form. Carter. The officer's pen hesitated. He didn't look up immediately. He let the act of recognition walk from a file at the back of his head to the front of his face at its own pace. When it arrived, it placed its hands on the desk and leaned. Sergeant Carter? He asked, not loudly. The word sergeant didn't belong to this room. It changed the air anyway. Used to be, she said. Greg blinked, then blinked again as if the second blink might retrieve the old world. Richard stood and dusted nothing off his sleeves. Candace's mouth opened and closed twice, searching for an insult with enough syllables to save her. Derek calculated how to add this to a story later, where he would be both brave and wise. Colton didn't move. He didn't smile. He didn't perform surprise. He simply made the tiniest adjustment to his stance, the kind you make when the floor shifts under you and you decide not to fall. Outside, the sirens idled the way a city idles when it has more nights to narrate. Inside, phones began to rise from laps. Lenses hungry. The officer lifted a hand. No recording, he said to the room. He looked back at Anna. We'll take statements, he said. Of course, she replied. Greg swallowed the word liability and replaced it with another word that felt like safety to him. Policy. He said it twice to make it sound like evidence. They came for wallets, Anna said, mostly to the officer, partly to herself. They left with something else. What? Tony asked. Because someone had to. Their story, she said. The officer nodded like he understood more than he would write. We'll need you to come down to the station. Anna glanced at the tables where the wealthy were reassembling their personas, at Greg's managerial posture, at Colton's quiet. All right, she said. The room had begun to murmur again, not gratitude, not relief, suspicion trying on its coat. The first questions curled in the corners like smoke. How did she know what to do? Why did she move like that? Who is she really? 2 minutes ago, they had wanted a hero. Now they wanted a category. The police did what police do. They made a perimeter out of posture and took the night into custody. Blue light flickered across polished glass, turning the dining room into an aquarium where every movement looked like a confession. Statements, the soft-faced officer repeated, his pen ready to catch the pieces. He had already said Anna's last name out loud, and the syllables were still changing the air. Greg tried to pull the room back into the old script. Everyone, please, he called, palms up. Remain seated until... Until when? Candace snapped, still smoothing a dress that had remembered too much. Until your waitress finishes her combat routine? We could have been killed. You weren't, the officer said mildly, not looking at her. Richard regained his internal podium. How does a server, the word tasted foreign in his mouth, know how to do that? He gestured at the three men who now sat cuffed with a sullen, deflated posture. And why was she standing when everyone else... You saw her. It's suspicious. She saved your wristwatch, Lauren blurted, surprising herself. Richard ignored her. This isn't a movie. It's a restaurant. What's my staff doing? Greg cut in, finding footing in a tone he thought sounded managerial. My staff is trained to de-escalate. They are not trained to assault patrons. They weren't patrons, Tony muttered. Greg's smile tightened. Not helpful. The soft-faced officer tore his eyes away from his notebook. Sir, your employee prevented harm. We'll sort the rest. The rest is liability, Greg said. then caught himself and tried a different word. Risk. Optics. You mean reputation, Candace translated, because she had grown up where words go to be dressed. Anna stood where she had been told to stand, in the wide space between the bar and the center of the room, where people go to be looked at. Her hands had stopped shaking. Her breath had found its slow ladder again. She had answered the first batch of questions. No, she didn't know the men. No, she did not hit anyone harder than necessary. Yes, she had eyes. The officer's pen had kept up. Sergeant? He asked again, softer this time. That was your rank. Once, she said. What branch? Another officer asked from behind him, a woman with a scar on her lip that made her resting face look like a second opinion. Navy, Anna said. The woman's eyebrows lifted. Where? Lots of places, Anna said. She didn't know the room geography. The soft-faced officer nodded. He wrote Navy and prior service in a box and underlined it once. He glanced up. I'm Officer Alvarez, he said. We'll need a formal statement at the precinct, Miss Carter. Of course, she replied. Do you have ID? In my locker, she said. Downstairs. Greg pounced. She won't be coming back upstairs, he said. He said it like he was rescinding a privilege. This is a 5-star establishment. We cannot have vigilantes in aprons. Vigilantes, Tony repeated, incredulous. She just saved... Tony, Greg said, warning in the syllable. Candace found her footing in outrage. She could be part of it, she said, the idea intoxicating. What if it was staged? I saw something like that on a show. The girl distracts, the men... Ma'am, Officer Alvarez said, polite in the way men are when they are choosing not to say anything impolite. We have the suspects on camera at 3 other locations tonight. They are not part of the staff. How convenient, Richard muttered. Anna turned her head and met his gaze. What would be inconvenient, she said quietly, is a bullet. Enough, Greg snapped, relief electrifying his spine now that he had a role to play. He stepped forward, shoulders squared to fit the policy he imagined on his back. Anna, as of now, your employment is terminated. You will collect your things and... Greg, Tony said, are you serious? And you will return your badge and apron, Greg continued, not looking at anyone except the future, where he would describe this moment as decisive leadership. And you will sign an acknowledgement that you endangered patrons. Officer Alvarez blinked at him. You're firing the person who just stopped 3 armed robberies? For violating protocol, Greg said, and for creating a scene. The scene walked in wearing a baseball cap, Anna said. Candace made a small sound of triumph. She's insubordinate. Colton's chair scraped back. He hadn't spoken since the sirens arrived. He did not rush. He stood, adjusting his sleeve, as if making a table more level. She kept a room from panicking into making itself worse, and he said, voice low, threaded with steel. She acted when you're... He paused, rejected several words, chose one. Training didn't. Greg flushed. The color lived high up in his cheeks where his ego lived. Sir, with respect. Respect would be hiring her twice, Colton said. It landed. Not as a threat, not even as a declaration. More like a measurement. Richard laughed, a brittle thing. Who are you two? James Colton, Lauren whispered. Too loud, awe uncoiling from a corner of her voice. Even Richard's contempt had the sense to reconsider. Greg recovered his script. Mr. Colton, he said, supplication a quick study. We are handling this with the utmost... You're handling your fear of Yelp, Colton said mildly, and calling it policy. Sir, Officer Alvarez cut in, not to silence Colton, but to remind everyone who got to write the report. Ms. Carter, we'll collect your statement at the station. Could you retrieve your ID? Anna nodded. I'll need someone to escort me to the lockers, she said, because it's easier to ask for safety when you name it. I will, Officer Scar on Lip said. Alvarez added, almost apologetically, there's one more thing. Well, I have to ask. He cleared his throat. Were you ever attached to counterterrorism? Greg's head swiveled like a weather vane. Counter what? Anna gave Alvarez the smallest smile. Yes. The word landed without self-importance, the way a fact lands when it fits only one box. The murmurs sharpened. They always did when the room found a new label. Sergeant, Navy, counterterrorism. The words changed her silhouette for them, made her too much, too fast. Decorated? Alvarez asked softer. She tilted her head. My mother keeps a box, she said. I don't. The scar-lipped officer's mouth almost smiled. Good answer. What exactly were you doing here? Derek demanded, emboldened by a new version of curiosity. If you were, why are you working? Anna said. Candace made a disbelieving sound. You expect us to believe that a soldier is bussing tables for fun? Fun is a generous reading of service, Anna said. She looked past Candace at the door the robbers had used, at the window that had shown her face back to her all night and not told her anything she didn't already know. Sometimes people do their work quietly. It's not a conspiracy. Greg inhaled, found the note he liked to hit. Regardless, when he said, the decision stands. You're dismissed. Greg, Tony said again, a plea and a warning. Enough, Greg said. He couldn't afford to appear indecisive in front of the reflection he was sure the room would offer him later. Officer Alvarez sighed. You can sort your internal HR after, he said. Right now we need Ms. Carter's ID, her statement, and a list of witnesses who are willing to put their names on what they think they remember. He didn't look at Richard when he said it. He didn't have to. Anna followed Scar-Lip down the narrow stairs. The service hallway smelled like bleach and the kind of exhaustion that money never sees. Scar-Lip walked like a woman who had earned her right to quiet. You really were CT? She asked. After, Anna said. Before that, I learned to be useful. Scar-Lip nodded. I'll write that down under skills. They reached the staff room. It was a box of metal lockers and pretended cheer, a laminated poster about ergonomics, a corkboard cluttered with schedules, and a flyer for a roommate. Anna spun the dial on her locker and retrieved her wallet, its leather softened by use more than money. She put her badge and apron on the bench. She looked at them for a moment without nostalgia, the way you look at shoes you've walked far in and suddenly realize you won't wear again. Scar-Lip leaned against the doorframe. You hold your breath in fours? Anna smiled with half her mouth. You noticed. My brother's a diver, Scar-Lip said. Different ocean, same math. They came back to the main floor into a different geometry. Cameras had gathered against the glass like moths with corporate sponsorship. Someone had told someone. The outside world had learned there was a story inside, and like always, it had arrived to take it. The uniforms had backed the press to the curb, but lenses are elastic. Greg had found a new posture. He stood with his arms crossed in a way that looked protective in photographs. Richard was on the phone, narrating to someone who had been waiting his entire life to hear a story where Richard had been brave. Candace dabbed at non-existent tears. Lauren was Googling James Colton net worth, frowning at numbers she hadn't memorized yet. Tony hovered near the server station, like you hover near a friend's house after the ambulance leaves. Colton stood a little apart. Not aloof. Careful. Officer Alvarez finished a sentence with a paramedic, then turned back to Anna. All right, he said. We're done here for now. We'll get your full statement at the precinct. Greg stepped forward one last time, compelled by the dying battery of his authority to flash before it flickered. He held out a folded paper. Employee termination notice. A line waited patiently for her signature, a little river printed in blue. I don't sign things I didn't write, Anna said. It's policy, Greg hissed. It's optional, Scar-Lip said, already bored of him. Richard pocketed his phone and addressed the room like a shareholder call. This establishment has standards, he announced as if he had invented them. We don't employ... He searched for the insult that would make him whole again. Security risks. You employ mirrors, Colton said without moving, and several people heard him, though he hadn't said it to them. Candace found this unacceptable. Are we all going to pretend this is normal? She demanded. A waitress who fights men? A billionaire who... She flapped her hand at Colton, reduced to pronouns in panic. Defends her? It's absurd. What's absurd, Lauren said quietly, surprising herself again, is that we're alive and you're angry. It hung there, the kind of sentence that seems too small to change anything, and then does. Anna looked at Tony. You'll be fine, she said. It wasn't a platitude. It was an order disguised as comfort. He nodded, eyes shining in a way he would not forgive himself for later. Alvarez led Anna toward the door. As she passed Colton, he didn't reach out. He didn't lower his voice into the register men use when they want something and are pretending they don't. He said just, "Ms. Carter." She paused. "Do you have a lawyer?" he asked. "No," she said. "You'll have my office's number by the time you get to the station," he said. "Use it if you wish, or don't." He added like a man setting one card face up on a table. "You did the only competent thing in the room," Greg bristled. "Mr. Colton." But Alvarez was already moving, and the door was already opening, and the blue light from outside made everyone look briefly honest. They stepped through. On the sidewalk, the city's appetite pressed close. Questions, flashes, the hot breath of a narrative seeking a face. Alvarez raised a hand. Scar lip fell in beside Anna the way you fall in beside a friend on a narrow path. "Do you regret it?" the first reporter shouted. Not what happened. Not are you hurt. A different question, the kind you can print regardless of the answer. Anna didn't turn. "No," she said. "What about your job?" someone yelled. She almost laughed. "I'll get another," she said. At the curb, a patrol car idled. Alvarez held the door for her. Greg would later tell people she had been taken away. She was being taken to. Inside the car, the hum of the engine steadied into a familiar drone. Scarlett glanced back from the front seat. "You can breathe now," she said. "I've been breathing," Anna replied. "That was for them," Scarlett said. "This one's for you." Anna exhaled, long and even. Outside, through the window, she saw Colton in the doorway, a still point in a chaos designed to topple people like him or like her. He made a single small nod, as if acknowledging an arrival neither of them had asked for but both recognized. The car pulled away. Behind them, the restaurant began to tell itself a different story, the kind that helps people sleep. Ahead, the precinct waited with fluorescent honesty and forms to fill out. Somewhere between, a decision, hers, not the room's, took shape and waited without hurry. They kept her in the fluorescent honesty of the precinct for 3 hours, which is how long it takes a story to become paperwork. Officer Alvarez asked his questions in a voice that apologized for the form. The officer with the scar on her lip typed the answers with the clean speed of someone who respects time. They took her statement, then took it again more slowly, then asked the same question in a different order to see if truth behaved in circles. It did. "Any injuries?" Alvarez asked for the third time. "Only to someone's pride," Anna said. He didn't smile. The scar-lipped officer did, just with her eyes. Somewhere down the hall, a drunk sang the wrong verse of the right hymn. Phones rang. A printer spat legal hieroglyphs. A young cop brought coffee that tasted like it was designed to exist, not to be consumed. Anna cupped it, grateful for the warmth rather than the flavor. "You can go," Alvarez said at last, handing her back an ID that still had the old address and the old haircut. "We might have follow-ups. There'll be requests." He meant press. "You don't have to answer any." "Noted," she said. The scar-lipped officer scribbled a number on the corner of a form and tore it along a crease made by use. "If your manager tries to be clever again," she said, "this call's my desk." "Thank you," Anna said, and meant it. The lobby of the precinct was a fishbowl looking out at a larger fishbowl. Cameras crowded the steps. Microphones bloomed like opportunistic flowers, and the kind of people who call themselves publicists pretended to be traffic cones. The night had changed neighborhoods and learned new questions. It waited to assign a new name. "Ms. Carter," a reporter shouted as soon as the doors parted. "Did the restaurant stage the incident? Were you armed? Did you endanger the patrons by intervening? Are you trained to kill?" Anna kept walking. She learned in other countries that silence is not surrender. It's choosing your weapon. The first thing that cut through the noise was not a voice, but the absence of one. A space opened in the swarm the way doors opened for people who didn't ask them to. James Colton stepped into it, hatless in the cold, tie loosened half an inch from a neck that had resisted that tie all his life. Flanking him were two people you only noticed on the third look, a woman with a legal pad and posture like iron, and a man whose job description was, "Notice the fourth thing." "Ms. Carter," Colton said, not loudly. He didn't have to be. Quiet has gravity when it belongs to someone who can pay his own weather. She stopped because he'd used her name, like it existed before this moment. The microphones pivoted as a herd. "Do you have counsel?" he asked. "I have a badge that doesn't open doors anymore," she said. "That's not an answer," the legal pad woman murmured, half to Anna, half to Colton. "It is tonight," he said. Then to Anna again. "May I lend you mine?" She could have said no. Pride often misinterprets rescue as insult. But she remembered Greg's termination slip waiting like a narrow river, and the way Candace's questions had made the air smell like lighter fluid, and the boy who'd asked earlier if she regretted being useful. "Yes," she said. The legal pad woman stepped forward. "I'm Davis," she said, which was probably her last name and her first line of defense. "I will field questions. Ms. Carter will not be giving a statement at this time." "You can't just—" a man in a wool coat began. "We can," Davis said. "Watch." She turned slightly, so her shoulder made the kind of angle cameras respect, and said clearly, "Ms. Carter has cooperated fully with law enforcement. She acted to prevent harm when trained staff were unavailable. She will not be answering speculative questions." A dozen speculative questions launched themselves anyway. Davis absorbed them like a seawall. Colton took one step closer to Anna, close enough to be private, far enough to be unthreatening. "I watched you work," he said. "Before that happened." "Working is not the same as being seen," she said. "I know," he replied. "It's why I prefer to fund and leave." "What are you doing here then?" "Breaking one of my better habits," he said. The cameras sensed something they could monetize and tried to muscle intimacy into frame. Colton didn't perform the moment so much as let it be. He turned his head a fraction, enough to invite the press into a sentence instead of a scene. "For the record," he said, addressing microphones as if they were shareholders, "the only person in that room who kept her nerve was Miss Carter. She kept mine too. I intend to act accordingly." "Accordingly how?" someone called. Colton glanced at Davis. She gave the barest nod. "Go ahead." "Miss Carter," he said, eyes back on Anna, words designed to carry, "I'd like to offer you a job." The words hit the steps like a dropped instrument that still managed to land on key. A ripple moved through the crowd. Offers make good television. Offers in public make better. Questions ricocheted. Davis lifted a hand, and the questions did what well-trained questions do when a better story is coming. They paused. "What sort of job?" Anna asked, because someone needed to remind the night that this was a conversation, not a coronation. "Head of security," Colton said, as if he were telling her she had something in her teeth. "For the Colton Group." Noise resumed in a higher register. This was no small security guard posting by a revolving door. The Colton Group gathered minds into tech, into art, into global supply lines, the way weather gathers clouds. Heads of security in those circles were presidents of quieter countries. Anna felt the precinct's heat press against her neck. She looked at him and then beyond him, at the lit windows where people were moving papers, at the street where a bus stuttered past carrying a woman home from a shift, not unlike the one she just lost. "You don't know me," she said. Colton took that seriously. "I know what I saw," he said. "I know my team can teach you what you'll need to know about the parts that aren't fists and breath. And I know we could use someone whose first instinct is to prevent drama, not create it." "You knew her name when you stepped out," a reporter interjected, curious before combative. "So you knew about her before tonight." Colton accepted the misdirection the way a martial artist accepts momentum. "I asked a server," he said. He said, "That's Anna. She gets things right." The cameras did not know what to do with praise that fit inside a sentence so small. "What will her salary be?" someone else asked, proving that capitalism never sleeps. Davis inhaled. Colton beat her to it. "Competitive with Fortune 100 standards," he said, which meant more than anyone in the crowd had earned for choosing adjectives. "And what does head of security do?" a voice near the back asked, not derisive, genuinely curious. "Everything that keeps disaster from making headlines," Colton said, "and when headlines are inevitable, keeps them honest." Anna let the noise move around her like weather, trying to find the piece of this that wasn't theater. She saw the calculus happening at the edges. How quickly this could be turned into romance by a bored editor. How quickly someone would decide she hadn't earned anything because someone with more money had noticed. She exhaled once, long enough to remind herself that oxygen isn't an argument. "I was fired tonight," she said to Colton, keeping the words level, For making a scene. You were fired for puncturing a fiction, he said. We are in the business of making fictions less expensive. What if I don't want to be ahead anything, she asked. What if I want quiet? Then I will stop talking, he said. Genuine. Dangerous. Davis leaned in. Mr. Colton. I meant it, he said to her. Then to Anna again, lower. I'm not rescuing you. I'm recruiting you. The scar-lipped officer had come to stand in the shadow of the door, arms crossed, watching the exchange with the professional interest of a woman who respects competence when it walks in unattended. Her mouth tilted. Take it, the tilt said. Don't. Either way, make it yours. What would I be protecting? Anna asked. People, Colton said. Data, dignity, in that order. She almost laughed. That last one is a myth. It's not, he said. It's just expensive. Silence found a small patch of concrete and sat down between them. The cameras, deprived of fresh syllables, began to cannibalize their own footage. The city exhaled, expecting her to take or to refuse, both satisfying in familiar ways. Give me until morning, she said. It was not what anyone expected. It was better. Davis's pen paused midair. Colton nodded once, as if the restraint pleased him more than a dramatic yes ever could. 8 a.m., he said. Our office. He nodded to Davis, who produced a card already sliding toward Anna's hand. The card was heavy, unprinted, except for a number and a name that didn't need introduction. On the back, in neat block letters that didn't belong to a man like Colton, someone had written, Ask for a pass from security. They like refusing them. You should practice making them say yes. The press wanted closure and did not get it. That, too, would be a story. They parted the air for her again. She stepped through. The precinct doors closed behind her, shutting out the low-grade symphony of question marks. The night had become colder while they were busy making narrative. On the sidewalk, alone for a beat that felt longer than seconds usually feel, she took out her phone. There was a message from an unknown number. He means it. Davis. And below it, a second. Whether you do is the only interesting part. She tucked the card into the phrasebook in her bag because old habits prefer the company of other old habits. She started walking with no particular destination, letting the city suggest one. Neon spoke in its native tongue. A bus exhaled. A woman laughed loudly at something that would be different in the morning. By midnight, the clips were everywhere. Grainy footage from a corner camera, her body moving like punctuation in a sentence no one else had learned to parse. Comments splintered into tribes. Praise, suspicion, fantasy, grief. The tag stayed standing, climbed a ladder it hadn't asked to climb. Someone slowed the footage and overlaid orchestral music. Someone else annotated her grip with arrows and jargon and got most of it wrong. An email from Greg arrived at 12:17 a.m. Return your badge by Friday. She didn't answer. Another from Tony at 12:21. You good? She wrote back, yes, you. He sent a gif of a man inhaling into a paper bag, then a second of the same man exhaling and nodding. She smiled at the screen, which is a small private ceremony almost no one admits to. At 12:35, a notification. James Colton posted a statement. She didn't click it. She already knew what it would say. Something concise, something precise, something that would make men like Richard feel like the room had tilted a degree against them, and they couldn't say why. At 1:10, her mother called. She ignored it, then didn't. You're on the news, her mother said, like a verdict that had come true. I'm on the sidewalk, Anna said. You look tired, her mother replied, which is what mothers say when they mean you look like you. Did you do what you had to? Yes. Then drink water and sleep, her mother commanded, because biology outranks narrative. When she ended the call, the decision she'd promised the morning had already found its shape. It did not come with triumph music. It came with the simple rightness of a yes that has earned its own voice. At 7:58 a.m., she walked into a lobby built to make men feel permanent, nodded to a guard who had been trained to confuse posture with power, and said, I'm here to see Mr. Colton. Name? The guard asked, performing ritual. Anna Carter, she said. He checked the list, frowned. I don't... Call Davis, she said, placing the heavy card on the desk. She wrote you a note. He turned the card over, saw the handwriting and startled into a smile he had not planned to share. "Right," he said, buzzing the gate. "Ms. Carter, welcome." She passed through. Somewhere upstairs, a man who preferred to fund and leave stood waiting, and for once did neither. Somewhere online, the world misread and misremembered, as it always would. Somewhere else, a manager rehearsed a speech about policy to an empty dining room. Anna stepped into the elevator. The doors closed on the lobby's mirror. When they opened again, the floor would tilt, just as it always had, and she would decide, just as she always did, how to stand. The video found her before the job did. A stitched clip from 3 angles, grainy overhead, a wine bottle reflection, a phone someone swore they didn't have out, stitched together by a stranger with a good ear for rhythm. No voiceover, just a room tipping from routine to rupture, and one woman who didn't. Someone slowed the moment the tray slipped her hand, synced the bell of metal against bone to the pianist's mangled chord. Someone else annotated her steps with red arrows and words like distraction and leverage, and got 3 out of 5 right. A teenager in Ohio put "stayed standing" in neon font. A grandmother in Queens forwarded it with a row of prayer hands that meant proud in a language no app translates. By noon, the clip had grown teeth. It bit reputations. Richard's hedge fund posted a defensive statement that read like a man trying to argue with the concept of win. He'd yelled at a cop off camera. Someone's body mic had loved him for it. Within hours, a client posted a letter severing ties for values reasons, which is how money announces it's embarrassed. Candace's charities board paused her chairmanship after a donor asked why their flagship event had become a synonym for entitlement. Derek's crypto pitch deck leaked, slides crowded with promises and emojis, a spreadsheet with a hole where ethics should live. Lauren's Instagram pivoted from lip gloss to literacy in a day. The algorithm blinked, confused, then escorted her to a smaller room. Greg gave an interview to a local station in front of the restaurant's awning, the good camera angle picked out like a suit. He said the words policy, protocol, and out of an abundance of caution in a single sentence and thought he had done something. The comments were unkind. A former hostess called him a weather vane in a wind tunnel. A server posted an old schedule with 10-hour shifts circled like bruises. Someone else posted his email. He locked his account, then unlocked it, then learned the hard math of public contrition. Anna did none of that. She did not post or reply or perform a version of herself that could be sold back to her. She showed up at 8 a.m., as promised, took an elevator to a floor where the carpet lowered voices by 6 decibels, and walked toward a door with her name taped to it temporarily, the tape carefully torn. Anna Carter, Transitional Office. Davis was already inside with a stack of folders labeled brief, which you should never trust. "Congratulations," she said. "You're a problem now." "I was a problem last night," Anna said. "Last night you were a phenomenon," Davis corrected. "Today you're infrastructure." The office had a window that made the city look as if it slept beneath her politely. A plant sat on the sill with the optimism of an intern. There was a conference table the size of a studio apartment and a whiteboard with an erasable map of the world. 2 people waited beside it, a wiry man in an ill-fitting suit who smiled with his whole inheritance, and a woman whose posture said she had survived purchasing departments. "Security ops," Davis said, introducing them. "Rami and Chen. You'll like them. They prefer checklists to drama." Rami nodded. "We'll begin with audits. People, systems, doors, the usual." Chen handed Anna a lanyard. The badge was a rectangle of indifference. Photo, name, a cascade of access permissions that looked like latitude and felt like pressure. "Don't take it off," Chen said. "People here get nervous when doors don't open for them." "Familiar," Anna said. Colton entered without ceremony, which had become its own quiet kind. He looked as if he had slept for exactly as long as he needed to, and not a moment more. "We have an hour," he said. "Then a board meeting where someone will accuse me of hiring a headline." "I'm here to remove headlines," Anna said. He nodded. "Davis?" Davis slid a folder across the table. On its cover, "Incidents, last 18 months. Inside, nothing cinematic." That was the danger. 3 phishing attempts that almost worked. A vendor badge copied and abused. a break room refrigerator that had been replaced 3 times because a USB cable had been found taped behind it like a joke, an executive's laptop lost in a cab, which is what executives say when they refuse to admit the cab was their own kitchen counter. "We're boring," Rami said, "until we're not." "Policy will be your friend," Chen added, "and your alibi." "I don't need an alibi," Anna said. Chen's mouth almost smiled. "Everyone does eventually." Anna spent the morning walking the building as if it were a new neighborhood she might live in. She asked for floor plans and got a smile. Floor plans live where bad ideas live, and settled for right angles and instinct. She watched badge readers respond to bodies and learned which doors held grudges. She stood near the loading dock and counted things that should not be left unattended and found 3 within 20 minutes. A courier tried to slip into an elevator on momentum. Anna stepped in front of him in a way that encouraged reconsideration. He reconsidered. By afternoon, the building had decided to be less surprised by her. A receptionist whispered, "That's her," and then whispered it again because hoarding proximity is a kind of currency. A programmer in a hoodie that cost more than honesty asked for a selfie, and, when she declined, thanked her. A custodian in a green polo nodded once. Eyes kind. It was the only blessing that mattered. Downstairs, in a glass room where money pretended to be a hobby, a gallery manager installed a painting of a gray square next to a different gray square and told a donor it was about light. Upstairs, in a room that didn't have a name yet, Anna drew a simple flow on the whiteboard. "Breaches happen. Panic wants noise. We choose silence. Plus precision. People stay whole." Rami added a box labeled "Training" with an arrow that looped back to the beginning. Chen erased the word "silence" and wrote "calm." "The press loves to confuse them," she said. "We don't." At 2 p.m., Davis briefed her on requests with a tone reserved for severe weather. Morning shows, nightly news, 3 podcasts, 1 documentary team that swears it's intimate, not exploitative. Also, she sighed, 2 proposals for a fashion spread. One is tasteful, one is less so. "I'm not selling clothes," Anna said. "You're selling an absence of panic," Davis said. "They'll dress anything in it." "Then we're out of stock," Anna said. "You could write an op-ed," Davis offered. "Control the frame." "I'm not a frame," Anna said. "I'm a hinge." "Fine," Davis said and made a note. "Hinge. In that case, you'll need a public policy. Say no to everything except things that prevent worse things." "That's my actual job," Anna said. "Then we're aligned," Davis said, "which is law firm for I like you." By 3, the second wave of video edits had arrived. The backlash to the backlash. A thread by a martial arts instructor dissected her footwork with reverence and restraint. A veterans group sent a message with too many exclamation marks and too much gratitude, and Anna replied simply, "I was just at work." A columnist wrote a think piece titled "The Myth of the Lone Hero" and accidentally made her point for her. She wanted to reply exactly, but didn't. At 4, a message pinged from an unlisted number. "We still have your last paycheck. Come sign the termination." "Greg," she sent back, "forward it to Davis and stop emailing my phone." A minute later, Tony texted a photo of the break room whiteboard. Someone had written, "She stayed standing," and underneath it, in different handwriting, "and kept us in our jobs." She stared at the photograph until the letters stilled into shapes and not demand. In the distance, Richard posted a video of himself at a charity event, voice trembling in a way that suggested he had finally met a mirror he couldn't correct. Comments were not kind. Candace issued a statement about learning and listening, the grammar of gentrified apologies. Derek tried to pivot to wellness. Lauren posted a book. The internet accepted none of it and moved on, as it always does, to a new weather system with a better name. At 5, Colton called her into his office. It didn't look like a powerful man's office, which is the sign of one. No wall of trophies, a desk with paper at right angles, a photograph of a field with no one in it. He gestured to a chair. "How is day 1 of your quiet life?" "Loud," she said. "That will fade," he said. "Competence outlasts noise." "You say that like it's a prayer," she said. "It is," he admitted. He slid a folder toward her. "Internal comms draft. I need your voice in this. People are waiting for a tone." She read. It was 90% there. She crossed out a sentence about family and wrote team over it. She added one line in the middle. We will train everyone, from reception to research, to act with calm, not secrecy, with speed, not theater. Our measure is not applause, but the absence of harm. She slid it back. He read and didn't change a word. Will you speak to the board? He asked. About what? Why you're here? She considered. Because you watched a room and saw what mattered. Because you made a room behave, he countered. Boards like rooms that behave. I'll say less than that, she said. They'll trust you more, he said. The board's questions later were exactly the shape you'd expect. Liability, reputation, benchmarks, precedent. She answered like she was tying a knot. No slack, no flourish, no space for panic to sneak in. She didn't tell them that fear makes people expensive. She didn't need to. They heard it anyway. On her way out, an assistant stopped her shyly. My mom saw the video, she said, pressing a Tupperware container into Anna's hands. She made baklava. She says, for the girl who made the bad men sit. Thank you, Anna said, and meant it more than most thanks. In the elevator, alone for the first time all day, she let her head find the cool metal of the wall. Her body did a quick diagnostic. Shoulders aching, a bruise blooming where a wrist had resisted, a fatigue that felt earned instead of extracted. Her phone buzzed. A text from her mother. Don't forget to eat. I see your eyes. She opened the Tupperware and took a bite in the elevator like a criminal. It tasted like sugar and vows. As she left the building, the street had invented a new normal. A man in a suit argued into air. A courier balanced 3 coffees like planets. A child dragged a balloon that had seen things. A teen on a scooter rolled past, glanced up, and did a double take. You're her, he said, braking awkwardly. Whose? She asked. He grinned. The standing lady. Anna laughed, the kind of laugh that keeps its own counsel. Not always, she said. Sometimes I sit. He scooted away, satisfied that the world contained its heroes at ankle level. At home, she turned her phone face down. The phrase book sat on the table where she had left it after London. The spine soft, the corners rounded by generations of women who did not apologize for liking their words in order. She opened to a page at random. Her grandmother's handwriting had fattened with age. Quiet is for hearing. Silence is for meaning. She thought about Davis's distinction, about the whiteboard, about the words she had crossed out and the ones she had chosen instead. Her inbox chimed once more. A message forwarded by Davis. From James Colton to all staff. She read it one time and let the relief pass through without lingering. It said what needed saying and nothing else. At the bottom, a line he hadn't shown her. We hired Ms. Carter because she respects rooms more when she refuses to perform in them. She closed the laptop gently, like putting a child to sleep. On a small side table, her old apron lay folded under her badge like a flag. She considered throwing them away and decided to keep them long enough to forget why. Not for sentiment, for continuity. The past isn't a story. It's a toolkit. The night settled in. The video continued to be shared by people who wanted to feel braver than their rooms. The wealthy learned what it feels like to be badly lit. The city replaced its outrage with weather. Anna washed her hands, dried them, and stood in the doorway between her kitchen and the small square of living room that held the rest of her life. She did the things she did before sleep and after crises. She counted exits. Front door, back fire escape, window latch, the door in her mind that opens onto breath. 6. Still there. She turned off the light and let the dark be a room with rules. Tomorrow there would be new drills and old fears and a board that wanted numbers for the absence of disaster. Tomorrow she would teach receptionists the tone that stops a person without anger and engineers how to say no without malice. Tomorrow the building would learn her gait and people online would mispronounce her and none of it would matter. Tonight the world had called it luck. She knew better. It was work, and the work would outlast the weather. Morning arrived like an uninvited guest, early, quiet, inevitable. From the window of her apartment, Anna watched the city unfold itself in layers, steam rising from grates, buses sighing awake, people stepping into lives they didn't entirely choose but carried anyway. The day had a calm too, even to trust. Her phone vibrated once, a message from Davis. Board at 10. You'll like this one. Dress like you own the air. Anna smiled faintly. She'd worn that tone herself once. In the Navy, before medals became ghosts in boxes her mother dusted twice a year. She turned on the radio instead of the news. Jazz spilled out, something slow, stubborn, improvising toward peace. She packed nothing but her phrase book, a pen, in the same calm she'd worn since the robbery. At Colton Tower, the lobby had learned her face. The guards nodded in a way that was both greeting and acknowledgement. You belong. That was new. She passed through metal detectors that hummed like polite bees and took the elevator to the top floor. When the doors opened, Davis was waiting. Clipboard, coffee, a pace that could frighten time itself. You slept? She asked. Enough, Anna said. Good. The board's already circling. They'll start with numbers, end with symbolism. You'll get used to it. I don't plan to. Perfect, Davis said. That's exactly how the good ones start. They entered the boardroom. The table gleamed like water frozen mid-wave. Men and women in tailored calm looked up from tablets. Colton stood near the window, hands clasped behind his back, watching the skyline as if it were a stubborn equation. Ah, he said when he saw her. The one person here who doesn't pretend to be calm. Pretending wastes energy, she said. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Shall we? The meeting began the way all meetings about crisis do, with slides pretending to be truth. Davis narrated the numbers. Drop in stock volatility, spike in brand engagement, a metric called reputational resilience that someone in marketing had probably invented last night. Colton let the graphs fade, then turned to Anna. This is the part they actually came for, he said. Dozens of eyes shifted toward her, polite but predatory. She met them evenly, seeing the hierarchy under the silk. Ms. Carter, one board member began, your incident has become a case study. The question is how you translate that calm into company culture. Calm can't be scaled, Anna said, but example can. Another voice, older, careful, asked, how did you know to act when others froze? I didn't know, she said. I decided. Then I acted like the decision was final. A low murmur moved across the table. Colton watched her the way a man watches a compass to see if it still points north. Would you describe your approach as leadership? Someone else asked. No, she said. Leadership assumes people are following. In that room, no one was. I was just first to stop waiting for permission. The silence that followed was cleaner than applause. Finally, Colton broke it. That's the culture, he said. Not obedience. Presence. When the meeting ended, Colton walked with her to the elevator. He didn't speak until the doors closed. They love you, he said. They love what I remind them of, she corrected, that they could still surprise themselves. He nodded. You'll be running the division by the end of the quarter. Then I'll have to rename it. To what? Preventive intelligence, she said. Practical, he said, and unnervingly poetic. The elevator chimed. Lunch? He asked. She shook her head. I promised someone I'd visit. The precinct hadn't changed. It still smelled of coffee and consequence. Officer Alvarez looked up from his desk, surprised into a grin. Ms. Carter, he said, or should I say Director Carter? Don't, she said. I came to thank you. He shrugged. You did all the work. You treated me like a person, not a problem, she said. That's rarer than it should be. The scar-lipped officer appeared behind him, file in hand. You left before we got to sign your statement copy, she said. Do I need to? No, she said. Just thought you might want to see it. It's cleaner than most stories. Anna skimmed the lines, clinical, chronological, free of adjectives. Beneath her name, the officer had added one final line in neat print. Subject acted with precision and restraint. Outcome consistent with intent. That's generous, Anna said. That's accurate, the officer replied. When Anna left, she felt lighter, as if paperwork could sometimes absolve more than sin. By evening, the city had turned gold. The Colton Group's new press release hit every feed at once. The Standing Principle, a corporate initiative led by Head of Security, Anna Carter, focused on ethical crisis response and human composure under pressure. Journalists called it a masterclass in rebranding. Colton called it long overdue, Anna called it noise and went back to work. Still, something in her chest eased. The world had found a headline she could live beside, even if it didn't tell the whole truth. That night, she walked to the restaurant for the first time since that evening. It had reopened under a new name. Table 6. Minimalist font, same chandeliers. Inside, a younger manager greeted her nervously. "Ms. Carter, we weren't expecting—" "I'm not here to eat," she said, "just to see the room." The tables had been rearranged. The corner where she'd stood now hosted a vase of lilies, their scent so heavy it almost mocked restraint. She traced the edge of the marble bar with her fingertips. Tony appeared from the kitchen, apron still on. "You came," he said, voice low. "You kept your job," she said. "They promoted me," he said. Floor-led. He hesitated. "It's quieter now." "Good," she said. "They still talk about you," he said. "The night you—" "Stopped waiting for permission," she finished. "Tell them that's all it was." He nodded, eyes bright. "You changed things." She smiled faintly. "Only the angle. The light was already here." 2 weeks later, Reuters published the story. Colton Group announces $2 billion global safety initiative led by former Navy operative Anna Carter. She skimmed it once, then turned off her phone. Fame was another kind of robbery, louder, slower, rarely armed. In her office, she hung one photograph on the wall. It wasn't of the restaurant or the night or even the company. It was the ocean. Flat, endless, horizon crooked, just enough to remind you that balance is a verb. Every morning she looked at it before opening her email. Every night she left the light on for a moment before leaving, not as vanity, but as signal. Calm had a place here now. Months passed. The phrase book gathered dust again, but she couldn't bring herself to shelve it. On the last page, her grandmother's note waited. "When they finally understand you, do not forget to understand them back." One evening, as the office emptied, Colton stopped by. "You know," he said, "you could have gone anywhere after that night." "I did," she said. "Here." He smiled. "You're the only person I know who can turn humility into gravity. And you're the only one who understands they're the same force," she said. He laughed softly, the sound of a man realizing he'd been outmatched again. "I'll take that," he said. "Take credit for the light if you must," she said. "Just remember who opened the window." He nodded once, then left her to the city's quiet hum. Later that night at home, she sat by her window with tea cooling beside her. The world outside blinked in advertisements and neon sincerity, but somewhere deeper, beneath the hum, beneath the commerce and the endless commentary, she heard something else, the pulse of her own stillness, echoing through everything she'd built from it. She closed her eyes and counted, the way she always did. In, 4, out, 4. Her breath steadied. The air felt earned. Outside, a bus roared, a siren passed, a woman laughed. Life continued, uncorrected, and for once she didn't need to fix a thing.